Hi everyone. I actually really like the Epoch Times. Um, I haven't really spoken about it before, except in my German videos where I was kind of criticizing the German Epoch Times for being a bit too extreme, but that really only applied to the German Epoch Times. I love the English Epoch Times. And I love everything about them. Of course, they're also being portrayed as being extreme, but they're not at all. They just give you the facts. But of course, if you just give people the facts sometimes aren't what people want to hear, so they get offended and then they attack and then they claim it would be extreme. But the English Epoch Times and even the Chinese Epoch Times and the Epoch Times in every language isn't extreme, except for the German Epoch Times, which had some problems. But this is actually also kind of what I want to address. Because they brought out this article series, and before they brought out the 9 commentaries, which I think are really important, are really good. And of course, they're exposing socialism and communism and so on. The 9 commentaries are mainly exposing communism and the Communist Party in China, because the Epoch Times was originally a Chinese language newspaper, even though it's of course banned in mainland China, precisely because they do criticize communism. And then later on they brought out this article series or book or whatever you want to call it, The Spectre of Communism. And this is basically exposing socialism in general, and not just in China, but worldwide. And it's a really good book, and they also have it as an audio book for free even. So I would really recommend everyone to read that. It's really great. Of course, it's criticizing socialism and communism. That's sort of the point. And of course, because it does that, socialists and communists get offended and, attack back and, try to label the Epoch Times as being extreme or whatever, or as being, I think Wikipedia even called. Let's look at the Wikipedia article. Give me a second. Oh yeah, the Wikipedia article actually calls it a far-right newspaper. Far-right. I don't know why it would be far-right, but, and actually on Wikipedia, if you click on far-right, it basically gives the explanation that far-right means associated with National Socialism. Well, it's not. So, but this is how socialists and communists attack back, right? So if you criticize them, say something like, well, socialism has caused a lot of suffering and a lot of people being persecuted and a lot of religious minorities being persecuted and a lot of people being sent off to forced labor camps, and has caused a lot of, just generally a lot of suffering and persecution and wars and so on. If you say something like that or criticize socialism in any way, they won't they won't argue with you and say like, no, this is not true. It's actually really great. It's this great utopia. Even though they actually believe that, and they actually do believe it's this great peaceful thing that's totally peaceful, totally great, and it's a totally good thing. But they won't argue with you like that. So if you say it has caused a lot of suffering, they won't say, no, it hasn't caused a lot of suffering. It's actually really good, and I want to convince you how good it is by being really friendly with you and staying rational and arguing with you in a friendly manner and showing you how good and kind people we socialists are. They will never ever argue with you like that or argue with you at all. What they will do is just, simply respond to your argument by not going into that argument at all, and instead just attacking you personally. So, and of course, if it's a newspaper that does that, and on such a huge scale, they again will respond simply by attacking that newspaper and calling it, implying that it would have somehow connections with National Socialism, even though it doesn't at all. And actually, my point, and the books kind of mention that, but they don't go into it in detail, because my point, and I talked about that before, but you can also do your own research. Look at the 25-point party program of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, for instance, and you will see that all of their party program is, it's full of socialist demands, including the abolition of private property. So it's full on socialism, right? That's what National Socialism is. But yet, if you criticize socialism in any form, they will call you a National Socialist. So they will call you a socialist if you're against socialism. Doesn't make any sense, but that's just what socialists do. And that's why the Epoch Times gets slandered. And the Nine Commentaries and the Spectre book, they kind of mention that. Here they mention it a bit, and they certainly condemn National Socialism, and here they doing it that as well, again condemning National Socialism, and in the Nine Commentaries they're actually calling it by its actual name, National Socialist German Workers' Party, which was the actual name. And of course, National Socialist German Workers' Party is too long, so people in Germany just called them the National Socialists, but no one actually called them Nazi. That came later, so but even Nazi is just it's just short for National Socialist, right? And here they're even calling it that. And actually, the Spectre book makes clear, and this is accurate, at least in my humble opinion, that socialism and socialists really are communists, essentially. But even though they both of these books are condemning National Socialism, and the Nine Commentaries even accurately call it National Socialism, they still don't actually see it as being part of socialism, which is even kind of an internal contradiction, because the Spectre book, at least in one of its chapters, as I said, makes the point that socialism is communism, and the Nine Commentaries call it a socialist party. So, but they're not. But neither of them are really, even though they are condemning it, neither of them are really portraying it as part of socialism, or as having been socialist. But they were. There's a very good video by Tick. It's an historian on YouTube, and he's an actual historian. He actually has a degree in history, and he really went into that and explained in detail with the German sources from back then how National Socialism really was socialism. So you can look into that yourself, you can do your own research, but the more research you do on that, the more you will find that it really was socialism, and that socialism really is communism. So even though these books also make that point, and even though these books also condemn National Socialism, I feel they still don't really, as you can see here, they still don't consider it as being part of socialism, which is sort of a contradiction, because they've been calling it socialism, But this is how socialists portray it. They don't want you to think that it's the same thing. They always want you to think that they would be better than the Nazis and so on, but they're not. That's just what socialism does. That's also what socialism did in other countries. They also, the Nazis, of course, persecuted religious minorities and put them in forced labor camps and made them disappear there, right? But that's what all the socialists did, But they don't want you to realize that, and want you to, the socialists want you to think that they would be separate, or even would be opposites to each other, when in reality they do the exact same. And the Nazis used the exact same socialist promises to gain power. And the exact same tactics. It would get too long if I were to get into all the details. So I feel it's important, if they, because they have these two great extensive books on exposing socialism. So I really feel they, instead of considering National Socialism separate, they really should expose it as being part of socialism, because it is. And that, their failure to do that has actually led to some problems in Germany. Like I said, the German Epoch Times, I love the Epoch Times, but the German one, they really are a bit extreme, precisely because Germans are prone to to becoming National Socialists, sadly, because National Socialism is especially targeted towards Germans. And especially in recent years, there has been a resurgence of neo-Nazis and so on. And especially, of course, you have neo-Nazis among people who oppose socialism, because, even though it's actually the same, people, especially here in Germany, especially the neo-Nazis, think it would be different. So it's especially important in Germany, and for the German people, to really expose that and make clear that National Socialism really is socialism, and that socialism in general is evil and persecutes people. This is obvious to people in other countries, but it's not so obvious to people in Germany. That's why it's so important for books that expose socialism to really expose National Socialism as being socialism as well, instead of portraying it as being separate to socialism, which doesn't even make sense. Like here, for instance, on the one hand, they're portraying it as being separate to socialism. On the other hand, they're actually calling it by its actual name, National Socialist German Workers' Party. So isn't that a contradiction? Because, of course, the reality is it is socialism, and it should be exposed just the same.